Thank you. Thank you all. We will now resume the public hearing, begin taking testimony from the public on the city's proposed budget. Before proceeding, however, I will lay a few ground rules on how we will proceed with public testimony this afternoon. We are here today to hear from you. Mr. McDermott, are we ready?
Our next witness is Beatrice Zovich.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just state your name for the record. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Beatrice Zovich, and I'm a Philadelphia resident. And I am testifying today on the City Parks and Recreation operating budget because I am concerned about FDR Park, and I'm concerned not only about the destruction of the park, which is one of Philadelphia's most treasured green spaces, but about the stark absence of public engagement and exclusion of the community in decision-making or discussion about the issue, and complete disregard for the democratic process. So given its stated commitment to serving city residents and making Philadelphia park spaces to build community, integrate nature into urban life, and even combat climate change, the manner in which Parks and Rec is attempting to push forward the FDR Park plan with no modifications, despite an outpouring of questions and concerns from the community that will be most affected, is disappointing at best. And the lack of transparency about who the true benefactors of the proposed sports fields will be, and the disingenuous endeavors to collect community feedback are insulting to South Philadelphia community members who will be most negatively impacted by the destruction of the meadows that will occur if they are paved over for athletic fields. And what is most disheartening to me is that at this time in which all evidence points to the fact that the health of our planet is in dire straits and that the existence of life as we know it is under serious threat unless we take immediate and drastic action, Parks and Rec is even considering destroying South Philadelphia's only urban woodland and meadowland to install 42 acres of synthetic turf. For over a century, the communities in South and Southwest Philadelphia have suffered from the toxic impacts of pollution and from nearby refineries and highways. And this project would only continue this trend by clearing trees, thus worsening air quality and causing increased pollution and heat. Additionally, the proposed synthetic turf fields will pollute the waterways at FDR Park and the Delaware River with PFAS and microplastics, the use of which the EPA has taken unprecedented action to advise against, and which would poison our soil and water. This is not to mention the immense destruction of habitat that will occur for the hundreds of year-round and migrating species that call the park home, including endangered monarch butterflies. CPR has continually tried to greenwash this issue and has invested no time in animal safety, translocation, or removal during destruction of the park that already occurred last fall. So the problems that face the city of Philadelphia can seem insurmountable and will require radical and multifaceted solutions. And FDR Meadows are one of our city's greatest assets that make it such a vibrant and incredible place. So I strongly urge considering not paving them over with poisonous substances and avoiding creating a new problem for our city. Thank you very much for hearing my testimony.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Our next witness is Jada Ackley.
My name is Jada Ackley, and I'm a West Philadelphia native and environmental justice advocate. And I'm here today to make a testimony on the Parks and Rec's operating budget, specifically the project plans for FDR Park, to be radically transformed from the public green space that's come to be known as the South Philly Meadows into artificial turf fields suited for FIFA standard practice fields. As a lifetime resident of the Overbrook neighborhood, I and my community are still grieving the sudden and traumatic loss of the public green space that resulted from the Cobbs Creek golf course clear cutting. And as a community, we will feel these ecological and social impacts far into the future. When I heard about the plans for this section of FDR Park, I felt called to help intervene. I, amongst many others, are in opposition to this development for numerous reasons, mainly those that it poses for human health. The flooding in this project will directly impact the quality of life for those in the immediate area by replacing the natural land cover, which sequesters water with impermeable surface that will contribute to flooding. The community directly north of the site ranks in the 98th percentile for extreme heat vulnerability and poor air quality exposure, according to the Center for Disease Control's Environmental Justice Index. And the destruction of this natural green space and the associated construction activities will worsen these issues by removing the cooling and air quality improvement services the meadows currently provide. The materials planned for the turf fields also have been widely linked to cancer. And at a time where the city has just released its first long-term tree equity plan and urban agriculture plan, This project would deeply undermine all of those efforts. Across the city, environmental justice communities today are still grappling with the legacies that stem from the long history of reckless development projects that prioritize private interest over public health. The impacts this project will not only have will not only compound these issues, but will have their own unique impacts that will be far-reaching into the future and that are not entirely known. This multi-million-dollar project is not the safest nor the most effective use of the city's resources as it relates to the Parks and Rec's mission and the city's responsibility to improve quality of life for its citizens at large. I ask you to please consider all of these negative health impacts that it will have on your constituents first, as they assume you will do when they elect you into office. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next witness is Maureen Braun.
Hi, my name is Maureen Braun. Thank you guys so much for giving us the time to voice our concerns. I am a pediatrician at CHOP. I work at the CHOP clinic in South Philly, and I live in South Philly. I have two daughters who are 5 and 7, and I'm adding my voice to the many others here today, as well as the many others who could not be here today, namely the children of Philadelphia, the kids I see at work every day, the kids that need access to nature and open space in this city, to ask you all to please save the meadows at FDR Park. As you just heard, there is a growing body of evidence supporting the benefits of regular time in nature, particularly for children and adolescents. It can help to mitigate the effects of chronic stress, which is a reality for so many of Philadelphia's young people who are living in poverty and among violence in our city. The Meadows is a refuge, and it's for everyone. It's free, it's accessible, and the proposed $100 million sports complex that would not only destroy a public health resource that the city so desperately needs, but it would replace it with toxic artificial turf, which contains carcinogens, as you guys heard, including PFAS and other chemicals. And that's been research that's been known for years. Like when I was in training, I had a mentor who testified against artificial turf field installation. So we know what we'd be putting in there and how it could affect our children. The proposed complex would be harmful to our kids' physical health, and it would take away this amazing space that's actually helpful to their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And I so appreciate all the testimony from the environmental justice people. They know much more than I do about the flooding and the environmental repercussions. But just to be a voice that I think represents much of this community, I have kids who play sports. My nephews live in South Philly, and they play like traveling sports. They're super competitive and into it. Many of my patients are athletes and participants in youth sports. I was actually a former collegiate athlete. I grew up playing sports. I understand the importance of youth sports, and I support them. But let's restore the many neighborhood fields that have fallen into disrepair. Keep some fields local where kids can walk and play games. Let's make that distribution and quality of playing fields equitable throughout our city's neighborhoods. Restore what's there so kids can feel like their city sees them, and then preserve this natural jewel that we have. We all know, it's been said, that the tree canopy throughout Philadelphia, but particularly in South Philly, is struggling. And people don't want to live in a city that doesn't have pockets of peace and nature. If the Meadows go, I really believe taxpayers will follow. People don't want to live in a city that is completely paved or that has like chemical-laden toxic fields instead of some natural green space. We want a city with trees. We want space to walk and relax and play. So please save this natural space. Give our kids access to trees and open space, the chance to maybe see a bird or a turtle, and it's just a subway ride or a walk away. Please do not spend $100 million to ruin our natural jewel with a toxic latent field system. Restore the neighborhood parks and leave the meadows as they are, please. And thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Our next witness is Madeline Dahlin.
Hi, my name is Madeline Dahlin. I'm a resident in West Philadelphia. I'm also working for the School District of Philadelphia in the Strategic Partnerships Office. And I'm calling to talk about the budget for the Parks and Rec Center and the plan for FDR Park and the Meadows. From personal experience, the park is a really important space for me. I feel like there are very few green spaces that are this open with this many trees, and it can be a really important space for myself and others to, be able to relax and feel safe and comfortable. But I just wanted to talk specifically about a few issues that I see with the new plan. First of all, the synthetic fields that are planned to have the turf put in. It's been said by the EPA that there's no safe levels of these PFASs, the plastics, for us to have and to be in the water. And it feels really unsafe that this would be right here next to the wetlands, and also for students, the athletes, the children, the families that would be using these fields. That's not safe, and it's not good for folks. It would make them sick. So I really don't think that this should be something that the city is using instead of grass. It's beautiful grass right now there in the meadows, and I believe that should be kept. And I just want to note that other cities are banning the use of these turf fields. And secondly, I just wanted to say that I believe that there's so much nature in our city. We're lucky that we have so many parks. And this is one of the biggest parks, and it's really upsetting to me that there'd be so much money of the budget spent to destroy this nature and this great space that we have. And instead, it could be used to improve so many other parks across the city that really feel like they're really disinvested in, especially parks that are in neighborhoods. This one is a great gathering place that many people go to, but it is on the edge of the city. So I really think that the money should be spent in neighborhoods where there's not a lot of green space and trees, and planting more trees and stuff there. And my last point that I just wanted to say is that the turf, if it would be built, it's made of plastic, and that's really not good for the environment. It would need to be replaced. That would be a lot of waste that cannot be recycled and destroying habitat in the process. Right now, there's lots of beautiful birds and animals there, and if this FDR Park plan is followed through on, a lot of that would be destroyed. And just wanted to note that in the process, they took down the dam, and this past weekend when I was there, the whole park, there's playgrounds and stuff like flooded, and that just really does not inspire confidence, when this is supposed to be about, creating safe wetlands and everything. So I hear the bell ringing, and I just wanted to say, I don't want there to be worse air quality and hotter temperatures in the area because of taking down trees, and that these green spaces are really important for our neighbors, for our community, for our health, for our safety. So I really hope that you take that into consideration and save the meadows. Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Council members. My name is Harrison Mace. I live in South Philly, and I love my city. I'm part of a number of organizations, but today I'm talking to you as a civically engaged citizen. I actually became engaged because of this outdated and maladapted plan for FDR Park. It was designed 4 or 5 years ago. How much do your children change in 1 year? COVID changed the whole world in a matter of weeks, so why haven't we been able to update the plan accordingly? In the literal words of Parks and Recreation, community engagement was a, quote, critical component of the master planning process. COVID changed all of our lives, our priorities, and especially our relationship to outdoor green space. It's time to revisit the plan together with the community, because we have a lot of questions as to whether the tens and hundreds of millions pledged really make sense here, especially when local neighborhoods, parks, fields, courts, and rec centers are underfunded and understaffed. The reason you've heard so many different flavors of questions and concerns about FDR today is testament to the issue of mismanaged leadership. Instead, leadership is continuously misdirected, lied to, and even gaslit us, the people. I tried to list out all the ways, but I can't fit them into my testimony today. So here are some of troubling highlights to share. Despite more questions emerging, like the whole park flooding due to contractor negligence just last week, Catherine Ott-Lavelle continues only to bulldoze and ignore us. And a question that's not often asked is why? Why won't they listen? Why are we in, quote, opposition at all? Are they afraid of a two-way conversation? Maura McCarthy's promised countless individuals she'd share toxicity tests, plans, data with us. None of that's ever been shared. And there's no accountability because the Conservancy is a private entity. Why are they even involved? We won a public meeting in January, but democracy chalked up a big L. They withdrew the public Q&A, selected a house of worship where signs our children made weren't allowed. They banned photography at a public event. They hired private bouncers. They literally asked individuals who they're with before deciding whether to admit them. You know that these were all decisions and orders instituted at the top and carried out to prevent real community conversation. Why? We were literally promised a follow-up meeting where we could ask questions. You know what we got? a one-way Zoom that ended early. Is that civic engagement? To close, what are we supposed to do? What is civic engagement? Because the message you send by not taking a stand is that it's all futile. And that's not a city I want to live in. I implore you to speak up for what's right in this city and its people. Stop the destruction, revisit the plan with the community. We want to work for the city, not against it. We need to be better than we are right now, and you have the power to change our current trajectory. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kim Alsbrooks. I live in East Falls. I've been involved in the park system as an advocate for many years. I was a founding member of the Friends group of Tacony Park, and I wrote and drew a Fairmount Park map that the Conservancy paid for and used in 2014. About the FDR Park project, briefly and to the point, this project will fail on many levels and therefore is a fiscal disaster and should not be supported. Here's why. I have a background in coastal ecology. This project is extremely insensitive to the environment. A lot of ignorance to place is occurring in the planning and implementation of the artificial turf for any success to occur. It's not going on hard ground in the city, it's going on a hill of mud in a wetland area. What Ott Level wants is instant fields on a flood-prone, low-lying area, so she's removed a tree canopy and plans on digging out a bunch of fresh mud to build up the area. You can't put a hot plastic rug on rich marsh mud in the sun, run around on it, and expect it to last. That turf will not only stink to high heaven, it will rot so fast you will be replacing them every 4 to 5 years. Paying for 12 rotting playing fields is a fiscal failure. When little bits of plastic start to show up on players' sneakers, you will be breaking the bank again. Any idea what it costs to deconstruct, dispose of, and replace 12 fields every 4 to 5 years? My research says it's about $2 million per field. And with rising sea levels, building in that area is very short-sighted. The whole thing could be underwater in a couple of years. A few more points. The polluted runoff from the turf plastic, chemicals, and cancer-causing phthalates will be directed into the tidal pool to be spread up and down the Schuylkill and Delaware River and beyond. That's an ecological fail. The fields are not 24/7. They won't be playable in the hot months, prime ball game season. They famously heat up like asphalt. Also, 24/7 is never recommended for these turfs. Overuse creates dangerous playing conditions as fields become impossible to maintain. If you play at night, the flora and fauna in that area will be adversely affected due to extremely high wattage confusing their natural order of sunlight. The electric bill, another financial fail. There's a much greater potential for injuries, heat strokes, and respiratory problems with artificial turf, showing a lack of responsibility to players. Lawsuits might occur because this is a known problem with fake turf. Finally, the fields are not for the use of Philly. That's just another fake carrot in this project. It's not in the middle of the city. It's next to I-95 and the Lincoln Financial Field for a reason. Ott Level is diverting money for the much-needed improvements and upkeep for our existing playgrounds and fields in order to have world-class playing fields, more to do with the World Cup games in 2026. There's a lot of misinformation connected to this project. 100% of the people in Philly that I have spoken to have a total what the heck moment when I mention these fields, and they don't know about this, by the way. Commitment to public forum is another fail. The people will not support the reality of this project in relationship to climate change, ecological, and fiscal responsibility.
You got to start wrapping it
Yep.
up. Right.
And, okay, yes, and it's sad that our youth won't receive the help they need in their own neighborhoods. Please take this project off the table, protect the wetlands. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Szmulowicz. I'm a resident of Cobbs Creek, where I organize regular trash pickups and bird walks. I'm also a volunteer with the Cobbs Creek Environmental Justice. So I'm calling to voice opposition to the Parks and Recreation budget and the city's capital budget for 2024. Specifically, I oppose the allocation of $1.5 million for the so-called capital improvements of the Cobbs Creek Golf Course. This is the second handout of this nature, totaling $3 million. It is outrageous that the city is giving $3 million tax dollars to the ultra-wealthy developers who are leasing the golf course from the city currently. The city has already given the developers a sweetheart deal by leasing out the 350-acre, $98 million golf course for just $1 up to 70 years and waiving all property tax and use and occupancy tax. In exchange for this sweetheart deal, the developers agreed to pay for all improvements to the golf course. Why then is the city now subsidizing this project to the tune of $3 million? The city should hold the developers responsible for its promise to pay for improvements to the golf course. The developers don't need the $3 million, but our community does. The developers' top leadership is composed exclusively of ultra-wealthy white billionaires and millionaires who live outside of the city of Philadelphia. How can the city justify giving our tax dollars to ultra-wealthy developers when our schools and community programs remain severely underfunded? More generally, I oppose the use of Parks and Recreation's budget to fund projects that destroy our community's natural resources. We see this at the Cobbs Creek Golf Course, where the developer has clear-cut 108 acres of trees, including 500 healthy heritage trees. And we see it in FDR Park with the destruction of forest and meadows to build acres of artificial astroturf fields. The Philly Tree Plan talks about the importance of expanding our urban forest, but in reality, the city is spending our tax dollars to destroy our trees and other natural spaces. Stop spending our tax dollars to destroy our natural environment, please. Thank you.
The next person to testify is Ursula Anderson.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. I am a 44-year-old resident of South Philadelphia, and I am calling to voice my concern about the plan for installing 42 acres of artificial turf fields at FDR Park. The primary reason that I am concerned with this plan is because it smacks of environmental racism. So the Parks Department has decided to install artificial turf fields in FDR. They've billed this as opening up access to soccer, which is a major sport for people of color, or Southeast Asian immigrants, Latino, Afro-Latino, Caribbean, African immigrants to the city. Yet they have decided to install artificial turf fields. Artificial grass is hot. Nobody who plays soccer prefers to play on artificial grass. Families who come out to watch soccer prefer natural grass. Yet the Parks Department wants to use artificial turf in an attempt to save money. But it will be at the expense of our people of color and immigrants who live in the city at their health, because it is well documented that artificial grass does contain toxic chemicals. And so the millions that are planned to be allocated in the budget to install these 42 acres of artificial turf, I believe that money should be directed towards maintaining, improving the existing resources, fields and courts that already exist that are in disrepair all over the entire city, including South Philly. The second reason that this speaks to me, the Park and Rec's plan of development at FDR speaks of environmental racism to me, is that the Parks Department has decided that providing soccer fields is the way that they should be investing in people of color, because those are the primary people who play soccer, and there's a heavy population of people of color and immigrants in South Philly. So instead of investigating and connecting people of color to the natural world, they have decided that they will instead invest in providing artificial turf fields, when they could instead be increasing programming to connect people of color to the outdoors. In particular, instead of destroying the meadows, they should be focusing on increasing programming to connect South Philly's only urban woodland to the people who actually live in South Philly who need it the most, and that's people of color. So again, I feel like the Parks Department should be increasing their programming and their resources to do community accessible urban agriculture, about orchards, and things like that. Thank you.
Our next witness is Lady Danni Morinich.
I think that Parks and Recs should have a substantial budget, but I don't think that they're using their funding in a way that stewards our diminishing urban green spaces or that it supports all of our communities. When the Hobbs Law was passed, it was to ensure that glyphosate-based herbicides weren't used in public spaces that were used by children and pets. Yet because it isn't enforced, they're still being used. Now they're planning to cover 12 proposed fields at FDR Park with artificial turf that contains PFAS and can impact the children that play on it and contaminate the water and land beneath the surface. And the claim that PPR is looking at safe turf, well, we only need to look at Portsmouth, New Hampshire to see how manufacturers lied about providing PFAS-free turf, only to find out that it does contain the chemicals which are now leaching into the soil and water. And while PPR is pushing the FDR multi-field agenda, saying it's necessary to provide safe play areas for Black and brown youth, if that were truly the case, then instead of spending millions in one location trying to monetize public lands, it would be a more responsible use of funding by offering extensive resources to parks and rec centers across the city, not just to install cameras, but to fund security and programs that focus on conflict resolution and training to provide skills that kids can later parlay into careers. Physical activity and team sports are wonderful for exercise and teaching kids how to work together. But nature is also a wonderful teacher, and for a larger number of people. My mother used to say that more is caught than taught. So what example are we setting for our children if we don't challenge PPR when they clear-cut trees, introduce toxins into the landscape, and dedicate a majority of funding to one project in just one section of the city while allowing others to languish? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lynn Landes. I'm founder of wildfoodies.org and helpalertphilly.org, and I'm here to testify about FDR Park. First, I want to register my outrage that the city proposed a redevelopment plan and allowed the clear cutting of 70 acres of trees from FDR Park with no official public meetings to allow for official public comments, neither through the Parks and Rec Department nor through Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs Committee. Until today, the city's actions concerning FDR Park, including the millions of dollars of taxpayers' money potentially involved, have violated the spirit and intent of the Sunshine Act. That said, I'm against adding any new playing fields to FDR Park for the following reasons. One, the city can't afford it and don't have the staff to maintain our park facilities as they are. Two, that land is basically a floodplain and should be protected as a natural asset, not a commercial opportunity. And three, according to scientific reports, all artificial turf is toxic and will present a serious health hazard to both children and adults alike, as well as contaminate our drinking water and harm wildlife. Increasingly, cities are banning artificial turf. Philly should be removing turf from our parks, not installing it. City Council needs to do what they claim they want to do, protect public health and the environment, as well as provide a great recreational experience in our public parks throughout the city. Walk away from this ill-conceived and hideously expensive project and save the meadows instead. Thank you.
Our next witness is Kate McGuire.
Good afternoon, and thank you, council members. My name is Kate McGuire. I've lived in the 19145 zip code for over 10 years. I'm a regular volunteer at FDR Park, and I participated in the Park Plan community surveys in 2017 and 2018. We have a once-in-a-lifetime chance to give South Philly kids access to a big forest. There will be ample chances to invest in maintaining neglected rec centers and improving existing ball fields, which we absolutely should do. But if we take down the remaining forest, these kids will be grandparents before we have another opportunity like this. Artificial turf fields are a terrible and expensive idea, and we should not waste money on them. They create heat islands, cause a high injury rate for those who play on them, release microplastics into our waterways, and they only last 8 to 10 years before we have to spend millions more in taxpayer money replacing them and disposing the old ones. We should preserve the mature trees, animal habitat, and numerous native plants that remain on the western side of the old golf course. Over 50 years of studies show that access to nature spaces leads to significant positive outcomes for kids across social, behavioral, and educational metrics. Philly kids deserve that kind of goodness. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to give our kids that access. Yeah, spend some money on the existing ball fields, please. Spend money on our existing neglected rec centers, please, absolutely. But let kids have some unstructured playtime in nature. Spend our money getting caring adults to take kids on nature walks. Teach them plant and animal identification. Give them a life appreciation for their environment. No to wasting money on artificial turf. Yes to preserving our forests. Yes to healthy opportunities for kids. It's a better budget choice. It's better for the air quality. It's better for our summer heat. It's better for the ecosystem, and it's better for Philadelphia. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Erin Mack. I live in South Philly, and today I'll be speaking to you about the parks budget regarding the FDR Park plan and the $100 million AstroTurf sports complex. I'll probably be repeating some of the points made in previous testimonies, but allow me to reiterate for support and emphasis. When I first moved to Philly, my biggest complaint I would tell my friends is that there are no trees, or it felt like there were no trees. And so going to the Meadows for the first time felt like magic. It is one of my favorite places in Philadelphia because of the animals and the plant life, and it is unlike anything else in South Philly. And that's because it literally is unlike anything else in South Philly. If you look at Philadelphia on the map, you'll notice that FDR is the largest green space we have in South, and it is the only urban woodland in South Philly. It is the only one. I want to just emphasize that. And to bulldoze the natural landscape and install AstroTurf over it would be a terrible mistake. We don't know who parks would rent the sports fields out to because that question hasn't been answered. And FDR Meadows is already an amazing resource and center for the community to gather. If we want to put the parks budget to the best use, it could be focused on maintaining current natural grass courts and fields all over the city, and they don't have to be replaced every decade and thrown out, trashed, because synthetic turf is not recyclable. Not to mention that turf leaches chemicals into the soil and water around it. For the Meadows, that would mean polluting the Delaware River. And I think we all remember the recent chemical scare. That really sucked. And this is the water that we drink. This is the water that our children drink. It's just, it's so important to preserve that and to preserve the Meadows, which is a unique space that deserves to be preserved. And the animals and plants and the natural world around us should be allowed to thrive. This is a unique opportunity that we have to preserve this amazing place in South Philly. We can't build a new Meadows. It is the only one. It's the only one. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. Mr. McDermott, we have no additional witnesses.
That's correct. There are no additional witnesses.
And do we have any comments from members of the committee? Thank you. There being none, this committee will stand in recess until Tuesday, May 2nd at 10 a.m., at which time we will reconvene in a remote manner using Microsoft Teams. Thank you all very much. Look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.